Hello everybody, thanks for watching. So been wanting to do this video for a while, and this is the basics of what you need to get started in carpentry. This is going to translate a little bit into some other trades, but specifically carpentry, that's my area of expertise. So these are just, if you've just got a job, you're brand new, maybe you're just 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and this is your first job and you have nothing. You've been hired and they're telling you, hey, you're going to be basically in that position, you're going to be a laborer, but we want you to have some tools. We want you to have your basic tools to get started, because you're going to be doing some cutting, some hammering. We're going to want to call you in to help with this and that. So you're going to want to carry your tools. And they give you some vague instructions. You don't really understand them, and they say some terms that maybe you don't understand. This is to help you understand what those tools are and what you may need to purchase. They're going to say something like, buy a measuring tape, and you're going to go and you're going to see a wall of measuring tapes and you're going to be totally overwhelmed. So this is to help you with that. So from here, these are the tapes that I use forever. These are called the Power Lock. They're very basic. They're very simple. They cost about $12, and sometimes you get them on sale for even cheaper than that. They are nothing fancy, really. There's just nothing fancy about them. But one of the things you'll see advertised on the tapes, very much so, is how long their standout is. The standout is how far can you take this tape and push it out with holding on to here before it breaks. And that's useful, but not crucial. You're not going to use that all that often. One that's very popular, that's more expensive, these are going to cost you about $25 to $30, is your Fat Max. When these came out, I mean, everybody used something like this when I was coming up. When I started out, this was about the best you could do. And then the Fat Maxes came out, and they kind of took over the world. There's a bunch of different variations of these now. A bunch of different companies make these. If you go to any of your big box stores, you're going to find a bunch of different stores where this is kind of what it looks like. It's a little thicker. The housing's a little thicker, and they're a little bit heavier duty. If you really want to get a good tape, you're going to want to get something like this. It's going to do a couple of things for you. So one of the downfalls of these is if you drop it, it can land on this silver hook. And you see how it comes out here. If it lands here, there's nothing for it to do. It's going to bend that hook. And I've bent a ton of these. You have to watch out for it because it will bend, and then your measurements are all off. And so something I kind of look at it every now and then, make sure that I haven't bent it. These, if you look, see that, and some of them are actually all the way in. I like the Fat Maxes because I can still get a hold of it. I have some that this is all the way in to protect it, and you can't get a hold of it. It's frustrating to get the tape started. I like the Fat Maxes because you can get a hold of it, but the way they've designed it, it just gives. You see, it just wants to go in. So if it does hit there, it won't bend that in. One of the things you're going to want to do when you first get started, especially, and you're measuring something, when you bring the tape in, make sure you don't slam it into the housing. If you do that repeatedly, you can adjust this little end piece and elongate that, and then your measurements will be off. And people are going to be watching you to do that, and if they see you doing that, you're going to look dumb. So don't do that. But basically, this is as low end as you want to go these days. Something like this. These are fine. They work good. And these are a good investment. I mean, I've seen them as high as $40. So that's a chunk of change to invest in when you're just getting started. So something to bear in mind. But that's kind of the two tiers of what you could look for that. Next thing you're going to want is a utility knife. So utility knives come in a bunch of shapes and sizes. Again, I'm old. I've been doing this a long time. I've had this knife. I think this is a replacement for my first one that I bought when I was 19. And that one got lost at some point. This one I've had for probably 20 years, and it's pretty basic. So something you want to realize is utility knives come in a bunch of shapes and sizes, and you can spend a ton for them. The ones that are getting really popular right now, I found them when they were just brand new, and I've been using them for a number of years now, are these. Milwaukee is the one that came out with these first, but a bunch of companies have come out with these. And what they do, because they had these for a while, right? They had these pocket knife utility knives, and they had a little thumb holder that you would open up. They were difficult. They took a little bit of extra time. I never cared for them. Then when they came out with these, when you push the button, you can flick this out. It's very fast. And if you push the button, you can flick it in, and it locks in place when it's closed, so this isn't going to open accidentally in your pocket. I really like this. This is often what I use exclusively for a utility knife. One of the things I also like about it is it's got a little button on the side, and if you press that button, you can remove the blade and put a new blade in very easily in one step. The downfall of these is, well, kind of the two-edged sword. They're extraordinarily simple. They're just a one button to release them, but how you change the blades is that screw. You actually have to take, it's a flathead and a Phillips head. So if you just take your fingernail, you can actually get this thing apart, but you have to, on the job, you just broke your utility knife blade, and you have to actually unscrew this. Then you have a loose screw. Then you have to take, and you have to kind of hold it flat. You have to take this apart, and you have a spot in the back end for extra blades. So you can see I have an extra blade in here. And then there's another piece that's loose, and this is the tray. This part is the tray that houses the blade, and that slides back and forth. Now, and it's a little tricky to get in, but it's not difficult. But it's just that there's so many pieces. One of the upsides of that is that this comes completely apart. So if you're cutting drywall specifically, or anything really nasty like, like tar paper is horrible for this, it'll get all over your knife blade. No big deal, right? You're going to throw that away. Yes, but you're retracting that blade into the handle every time. And so all of that gunk is getting inside of your knife. And some of these new ones, they have a little button, kind of like this, where you push on the side and you can pull that knife blade out. And they don't come apart. So there's no way to clean them. Now, this thing, since literally this comes completely apart, you can see how rusted this is. Well, I can take this and I can sand this down. If this gets gunked up, I can sand this down. I can clean this out. I can put goof off or something in here and get any tar out of it. Whatever I want to do, and this will come completely clean. So this thing will last me. I'll be passing this down to my kids because there's just nothing to go wrong with it. The only thing I've ever seen break on these is I've seen these break. If you're really hard on them, I've seen these break. We actually would take these and put them in drywall and take our hammers and hit on the top of them to drive them through drywall to make cuts. When we didn't have a saw to cut through the drywall, we would literally cut through the entire half-inch sheet with this by using a hammer and beat these through the drywall. Now that will break them. They will break at the top here if you're really abusing it like that, but it takes a long time. Trust me, I have beat these things and beat these things, and I haven't beat this one. You can see this one's not been hammered on, but I have hammered on these things really hard for long periods of time before they ever break. So yeah, that's kind of the downfall of this is there's no way to take this apart. I mean, there's some screws here, but if you can see I've been cutting drywall with this, and if you put this in here, it can get gunked up in that slot. And that's kind of a downfall of that. It's not a huge deal. It's rare to have any issues with that, but it can be an issue. So after that, you're probably going to, especially in carpentry, you're going to want a hammer. So what hammer do you pick? That is really depends on you and what job you're doing. Probably if you've never done carpentry before, what you've gotten hired onto is a framing crew. And if you're going to use a hammer, it's going to be for beating walls over to where they need to go. You're going to literally smack them until they get into place. Or the nail gun just didn't drive the nail where it needs to go, and you're going to finish it out with your hammer. This is a trim hammer. This is a 16 ounce, I'll leave that in, 16 ounce trim hammer. And this is by Vaughn. And these are really handy. A handy size. You can do trim with this. I can do framing with this, but you're probably going to want something bigger than 16 ounce. 20 ounces or above is considered a framing hammer, and 20 ounces and below is a trim hammer, if that helps you when you're looking at all the hammers. Again, you look at the hammers and there's tons of hammers. You are not going to want a wooden handle. Okay, these are more easily broken. They are a little bit more finicky in how you care for them. I prefer them myself because of the way it actually feels in my hand, and when I'm driving the nail, how it drives the nail. It's old school. It just fits how I work. But there are some things that you need to know about how to use these. You're going to want a metal handled hammer or a fiberglass handled hammer. And that's going to be really dependent. So one of the things to know about hammers is the metal handled hammers, the classic ones were the Estwings. They were a metal shaft here that was very thin, and then they had a rubber overmold on your handle. There is a problem with those because sometimes you're going to be in a very tight space where you have a wall here and you can't swing your hammer back. You cannot do this number. So you have to choke up on the hammer and literally like punch it. You're punching the nail is what you're doing. And so you have to choke up all the way on it to do that. It stinks, and that's just the way things are. But with those metal Estwing type, and there's a ton of companies that have them just like that, but classically they were just the Estwing brand. You can't do that. You can, but it's going to hurt your hand. So a fiberglass handle can be really helpful because it gives you the thickness that this has all the way up. This would be fiberglass with a rubber overmold where you're supposed to grip, and it still gives you some cushion as you're actually choking all the way up on it. Those you can break as well. I've only ever seen one person break an Estwing, and they were doing something they absolutely shouldn't have been doing. And they knew it. And they broke it, and they're like, that was my fault. But if you're using them under normal use, they will last you the rest of your ever-loving life. I mean, they don't break. You cannot break them under normal use. So that's something to just keep in mind. All of this is just personal preference. It comes down to at the end of the day. So for framing specifically, but really for all carpentry, you're going to want a framing square. A speed square. This is a speed square, not a framing square. Framing square is a totally different thing. You don't need that at the stage you're at. So this is the classic one, and it's by a company, Swanson. Were the first ones really, I guess, to bring these out. They were always just Swanson. There are some other brands now. They're all pretty much the same these days. The only thing I can tell you to stay away from is the plastic ones. You don't want to do that. They're probably $10 cheaper. I mean, they're pretty cheap, but they're plastic. You can bend them, you can break them. They're just not going to hold up. These are aluminum. And they will do way more than you know how to do. You will learn a lot with this. Most of the framing these days is done with this or a larger version of this, but this will fit. This is a good size. This is 7 inches is what this comes to. It's got all the inch marks listed on there, and they're engraved so you can't rub them off, which is a very good thing. This one is, I think this is my second one. My first one got dropped from a barn roof down through the roof, which was not on yet, as I was in the rafters, and it dropped about 40 feet to the concrete and tipped down, and it bent this. And I worked with that honestly for a number more years, and then I bought a new one and threw that one away because it was just permanently bent slightly. And when you would put it on, it would kind of rock. It was a pain in the neck to deal with, but I dealt with it. But other than that, this is probably a good 20 years old. And you can see there's really nothing wrong with it. Some minor scratches. These things hold up forever. So that's kind of the start. Now, beyond that, you would probably go into a chisel. So a chisel, there's a bunch of different types. These are the more preferred with the metal butt end on this. This isn't connected. This is not a full tang. So this is all plastic, and the metal here stops, and the butt ends. Just the butt end here has metal. You're going to pay more for this than one has just plastic. That's just fine. If they just say, hey, you need a chisel, you're going to use it occasionally, just get yourself a chisel. A 1 inch or 3/4 inch is probably a good size, but sometimes you'll just get them in a package that have a bunch of different sizes, and then you just take, a 1 inch or a 3 inch with you. The ones that have the plastic side, those are going to last a long time. These are just going to last a lot longer. Again, this one is probably 15, 20 years old, and has been used and resharpened and redone a bunch of times. And it's still holding up fine. You can see the back end is really, really pitted from being hit with the hammer, but it still works just fine. The plastic ones they're going to mushroom is what they're going to do. The plastic itself is literally going to mushroom out as you whack on it with the hammer. But they're so cheap that when they do that and they really get bad, or the plastic ends up breaking, you just go buy another one. So yeah, to get started, if they ask for a chisel, that's what you want to look for with that. Now, some specialty tools that I always carry, I started carrying these later on in my career, but as I've gone back to do the same thing, to do rough framing, I still use them for a bunch of different things. This is a flat bar. It's a bunch of different things. These I got on Amazon. I got 2 of them. These were beekeeper tools on Amazon. There are also paint scrapers. There's a bunch of different trades that use them for different things, and they call them that thing, but it's just really a pry bar. This little hole here is supposed to be for pulling nails. It doesn't work. I've never been able to pull a nail with that little hole thing. But it's a 90-degree angle. These are about, what are these? About 8 inches, about 8 inches long. They come in a bunch of different sizes now. But this one that I've always carried is about 8 inches long. It's very sharp, most of them. These particular ones I liked from Amazon because they came very sharp. When they're dull, I always put an edge on them as if they're a chisel, because you will have times when you'll use this kind of like a chisel. You can see this was all bright red, and you can see where I've actually hit that with the hammer and scraped all that off. So you can drive this into things and cut nails and do all kinds of things with this. But I just keep this in my pouch, and it's more of a trim tool, but I use it for framing as well. And you'll find a bunch of uses for this. If you can't find one of these, another tool that is not meant for this, but is a handy tool to have, is a 5-in-1 tool. They have a bunch of different uses. I keep this one really sharp. So this, people don't know, this part here on a 5-in-1 is a scraper, and this is actually a knife. And so it's supposed to have a sharpened edge here. They mostly come really dull because the companies are afraid that you're going to cut yourself before you ever use it. So I sharpen them up. That's a nail puller. Again, doesn't work. This curve here is actually for cleaning rollers. That's what it's a painting tool. But this sharpened edge here and this sharpened edge here and the general shape of it, like this, can get into tight spaces and be able to pull things over when you just can't, because it's thinner than a chisel, you see. See, a chisel is very thick, where this is very thin. So I can drive this in easier than I can drive a chisel in to small spaces, to be able to pull a board over or to do things like that. So on your framing crew, when you're just getting started, the last thing you're going to need to purchase is you're going to need to purchase a set of bags. Now, you are going to want 2 bags. Now, how they'll sell them 1 bag at a time, a separate belt, and sometimes, in some cases, you can find suspenders sold separately. But generally, what you're going to find is either 2 bags with a belt and suspenders, or 2 bags and a belt with no suspenders. That's what the kind of the trend is now. Because some people don't like suspenders. I am a suspender guy. I like the suspenders. These are red because they were purchased separately. I didn't like the suspenders that came with this particular set, so I didn't purchase them, and I bought a separate set myself. These are by DeWalt. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're going to find at your local store is probably what you're going to purchase. You're not going to be able to try them on. That's the problem. They always have them zip tied together. You're just going to have to look at the pictures and make your best judgment as to what's going to suit you. I have a few things that I've learned over having many different bags, many different bags over a number of years. What I look for is a couple of things. I look for holders for pencils. They're going to be a smaller hole, and it's going to have a bottom to it. Watch that, because some of these small holes that you'll see, oh, that's for pencils. They go all the way through because they're not for pencils. They're actually for pliers. So the handles will go through there and they'll go all the way through, and they're just a loop. So be careful of that. If you're looking for something for a pencil, that may not be what that's for. This one, you can see I've got a marker on there. That is what this is. It's a loop. It actually goes all the way through. So my pen, my big marking pen, has a little clip on it, which I can put on there and it won't go through all the way. The silver clip here that you see is for your tape. Now, the cool thing is, these bags do a couple of things that you're going to want to take note of. Most of your drills now have a clip on the side of it. You're going to get, these days, absolutely, if you're going to stick with this, you're going to get to a point where you're going to want a drill. These are rattle guns. This is a drill. This has got a chuck in it, where this has a speed release in it, okay? So either way, either one of these you're going to use, and you're going to be up on some rafter somewhere, climbing around, having to put screws in, and you have to get your hands free, and where do you put this thing? There's been a bunch of stuff over the years, but these bags do 2 different things. One, that clip clips into that place where you put your tape. You can just put your tape somewhere else and put this on there. The other thing that I actually prefer to do is that the bags are big enough that you can actually put this thing upside down and it will hold your whole drill inside the bag. That's really great for climbing around rafters because this thing doesn't fall out very easily. And I have dropped a ton of drills onto concrete from very high up. That's a bad day. So you're gonna have a hammer holster. You're gonna need that because you're gonna need to carry your hammer with you at all times. And there's really no other way. I've seen a bunch of people use a bunch of different methods. Our grandfathers were right. That's the only way to carry a hammer. Just do it. So this is my right side. So there's a couple of pouches here where I keep tools, and they have slots so that they'll stand up. If you don't have these slots, all your tools are just going to be in the bottom, and you're going to be digging through to get them. So that's another thing that I always look for is slots for my tools. I'm always carrying my speed square. The first time I saw a bag that did this, my mind was blown because we used to put them in our back pocket. We literally would put these speed squares into our back pocket, and if you're doing anything other than just standing around, they fall out. That's how I dropped my one speed square, as I had it in my back pocket, and I was up on rafters, and it dropped out of my pocket. But when I started looking around at new bags, I found one that had a pouch for the speed square. You can tell it's for the speed square because it is triangular shaped. It's not just a slot for whatever. It is for the speed square specifically. And a bunch of different bags will have those now. The bag choices are way better than when I started. Trust me, you are in better condition than when I started. Now, what you've got here is you've got your speed square, and you're all set to go. But what you have is you have 3 pouches. You have a main pouch here, and you have 2 smaller pouches. I started out, I had 2 pouches on my left side. I had no bag at all on my right. I just had a hammer hanging on my right-hand side, and that's all I had. So my speed square went in my back pocket. All of my tools, extra tools like these, utility knife and everything, went into my pockets. Or they went into the big pouch of the 2 pouches that I had on my left. One of the things you don't know right now is that, especially when you're framing, you're going to have situations where you're going to have 2 or 3 different fasteners, screws or nails, whatever you're doing, that you're going to be using at any given time. You're not going to just be putting in one type of nail all day long. You're going to have 2 or 3 different nails or screws that you're going to be putting in at any given time. And so you want multiple pouches to be able to divide those and carry more than one at a given time. That's going to be crucial for you. So once you've done all of that, the next thing you're going to do, like I said, you're going to want to plan ahead when you do your bags, is you're going to do a drill. Now, for the most part, for most people, what you're going to want to do is go get a combo, not one of the big ones with the skill saw and all of that. You don't need that. What you need is you need a drill and driver combo. You'll generally get 2 batteries and a charger, and that's what you need. That will get you way down the road. These are the 20-volt DeWalt's. I like them. Milwaukee makes a good one. Bosch makes a good one. A bunch of different companies. I'm not here to tell you one's better than another. I haven't used them all. I've used DeWalt for the last 15 years or so. But the reason I haven't used them all is because I'm invested in DeWalt. I have all my batteries are DeWalt, all my chargers are DeWalt, all my tools are DeWalt, and I'm not switching. I don't care if one's better. I'm not switching. There's too much money involved. So once you start with one, that's one you're going to have for a number of years. I've switched once in all the years that I've been using cordless tools. And that was because the brand I was using went out of business. That hurt to rebuy all my tools that I had. That hurt. And so you don't want to do that. You want to just find a big name brand and stick with it. And now you'll see these little ones. These are 12 volt. And a bunch of companies make these. Even DeWalt makes a little 12 volt that's small like this. You don't want to buy this, especially for your first one. I have these because they're specialty drills. This is a completely different battery set than the DeWalt set, so it can be whatever I want it to be, but I have these because they're specialty. They're small, they fit in pouches easily, and they're lighter for smaller work. They're shorter, they're literally physically shorter than the bigger drills, and so they get into tighter spaces. They do things that those won't do, but you don't need that. You need something with some heft to it. And so the first one you get should be 20, 24 volt, something, something in the higher voltage range. That's going to cover your bases. It's going to be very basic and cover your bases. Even if you are a homeowner and you are looking at this video and you're saying, hey, I want some basic tools to be able to work around my house. This is what you're looking at. This is your basic tools to do most things. Beyond this, there are tools that you're going to have like ratchets, screwdrivers, other basic homeowner type tools, but your tools that you're going to want to carry with you that are going to do most of the work that you're going to do around your home. You're looking at it right here. Your drill set. Again, you can go with an off-brand. You can go with something from Harbor Freight. But bear in mind that places like Harbor Freight, brands change over time. And you could get invested in a brand that's going to disappear. So if you're a handyman who occasionally does a little something around the house, that's probably fine. But if you really are going into the trades as your career, or you do a lot of work for yourself around the house and you want something that's going to last, you're just going to want to go with one of the main name brands like DeWalt, Milwaukee, Ryobi even these days is pretty good. Ryobi tends to be it started out as a cheaper brand, but it's pretty much the same price as the others. So any one of those, but you want to go with a name brand. You just do. It's going to be easier to find stuff. It's going to be more availability of tools, more availability of batteries, and the brand's going to last longer. So that's how that goes. So this is just a basic tools for getting started. If you want to know more about what tools that you specifically should buy or reviews on specific tools, let me know in the comments section below, and we'll see if we can do a video on that too. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, bonus trade secret, guys. Get yourself a roll of electrical tape, put it in your pouch. No one has to know it's there. Just keep it in there. Then one of these days, when you're on the job, you're 3 stories up, everyone's watching, you're going to cut yourself, okay? You're going to have a little cut on your finger. These things bleed like crazy. You're going to be getting blood everywhere, all over yourself, all over your coworkers. Everybody's going to be mad at you. All you got to do, pull out your electrical tape, stick it in your finger, wrap it around a couple of times, and then give it a little tug. There. Instant Band-Aid. Your boss is going to see it. He's going to think you're a go-getter. He's going to give you that raise. Thanks a lot for watching.